Hello and welcome back here on World Talks on TVP World. I'm Diana Skaya. Now on Sunday, Moldova's President Mai Sandu was re-elected with 54% of the vote, keeping the nation on its pro-European path despite claims of significant Russian interference. Now, in her victory speech, Sandu promised to serve all Moldovans though upcoming parliamentary elections could challenge her party's influence. Now, with nearly 98% of votes counted, Sandu held a clear lead over Alexander Stoianoiaglu, a Kremlin-aligned newcomer backed by the pro-Russian Party of Socialists. And joining me now to discuss the outcome of these Moldovan elections is Vlad Lupan, former Moldovan Ambassador to the United Nations. Good evening, sir, and thank you so much for being with us here this evening on World Talks on TVP World.
Thank you for the invite.
All right, let me begin by asking you here about the meddling here. Now, Moldova's national security advisor described a massive interference by Russia in the election with a high potential to impact the results. Now, various media, of course, reported on Sunday that they had reasonable evidence of illegal organized transportation of people living in Russia to vote at Moldovan missions in Azerbaijan and Turkey and Belarus. Now, could you elaborate a little bit on this? What types of interference were observed? What are we talking about? And the possible effects on the outcome of these elections?
Right. This is not new. This has been done before, particularly busing the voters from the essentially Russian-controlled Transnistrian region in the east of the Republic of Moldova to Moldovan elections. That particular region has been recorded, it has been shown with various videos and interviews in prior elections where the Russian-owned enterprises with owners from Russia proper, not just Russian ethnics. They are people who reside in Russia. They own a number of enterprises in that separatist region. That separatist region is akin, very similar to what is happening today in Donbass in eastern Ukraine. In the case of Moldova, it's a frozen conflict. It didn't continue. Though those owners of those enterprises in that region, as well as the leaders of that region, they're subordinate, sometimes even citizens of the Russian Federation. They often call for the Russian Federation to intervene on their behalf. There are public statements. They're all available online. This system of sending their own Moldovan citizens to vote inside Moldova in order to change the elections has been going on for a longer period of time. Russia implemented the same system now. I have personally seen, and I'm sure a lot of people who follow Moldova elections have seen videos of the aircraft with people with Moldovan passports inside the aircraft going into Belarus. We have seen people in Istanbul. We have seen people in Azerbaijan being interviewed and saying, yes, they have been transported to those specific stations, polling stations, to vote. Russian system that we have heard up to now was used in the following manner. Usually the bosses would request the people to vote in the right way, meaning the way that it favors the Russian Federation, and then possibly, if they can, take a picture of the vote to prove that they voted the right way for the favorites of the Kremlin. So if you don't vote, you will lose your job, your kids will suffer, and so on and so forth. So in these kind of circumstances, with multiple accounts of this type of transportation, as well as with video accounts of those journalists who infiltrated the Russian campaign and saw how the vote buying was done, certainly there was a lot of interference that has managed to influence. Definitely, the real percentages for the pro-Russian forces was lower, but vote buying did change that.
This is something similar also to account to what the Georgians experienced as well in their elections. Now, sir, Moldova has a large diaspora community that actively participates in elections as well abroad. Right now, what role did voting from abroad play in this election? Is it going to be able to influence Moldova's political landscape, given the fact that, possibly many of these Moldovans living outside don't live in the country?
Right. I am a part of the diaspora. I am a professor at New York University. I voted as well. I have relatives back at home. My family is here with my immediate family is here with me, but my brother, my father, a lot of my extended family are all home. We are linked with our parents. We are linked with our direct relatives, and we, Moldovan diaspora, left the Republic of Moldova in order to provide with money to those at home. We send remittances, so we do contribute to the Moldovan, to our relatives, to the Moldovan financial system, and you might not know that, the wider public might not know that, but Moldovan diaspora sent at a certain point in time about an amount of money that was equivalent to 35% of the Moldovan GDP. So the money that was flowing from diaspora, the personal investment that was done by the diaspora, even partially a sacrifice of leaving the home, leaving your own relatives, leaving your closest ones in order to work abroad, to provide for them back at home, does not disconnect the Moldovans who are abroad from those who are home. We are still very much connected. The impact was that those voters brought up was very important, of course. A lot of the Moldovans have voted in the first round and then in the second round for President Sandu, for respectively, there was some diaspora who voted for Stoyanoglu as well, particularly the Russian diaspora. That's why they were sent by plane to those stations. But the Moldovan diaspora abroad basically, in the case of the referendum, overturned the results of the referendum by 0%. So they did play a role. But do take into account, again, what I said. The Russians were buying votes. The actual vote was probably bigger in favor of the referendum, bigger in favor of Maia Sandu, because most of the diaspora in Western, Central Europe, Western Europe, Americas are favoring, most of it, not all of them, are favoring Maia Sandu as the pro-European choice between the two candidates. So, yeah, diaspora sealed the fate. It added those missing percentages in the case of the referendum, but not necessarily in the case of the second round of the elections. That was decided primarily by Moldovan voters with some help from the diaspora as well.
Mr. Lupan, what are the main challenges that this pro-European government is going to face in retaining support domestically and from the diaspora, of course, like you mentioned right now?
The main challenges is the implementation of the reforms in a very relatively short period of time, basically convincing its voters that it's capable of doing the reforms that it promised. Remember that Moldovan system is a semi-presidential system, which means the president is relatively less important than the prime minister, than the government, and the elections are coming in summer. So what we're having now is the first test of the elections that is going to come in summer. With that, if the Moldovan political party that is in power now, the PAS party that supports Maia Sandu, is going to be able to demonstrate to the public that they are indeed capable to implement reforms, and those reforms are going to actually touch the lives of ordinary Moldovans, that will help them. That is going to be the challenge. And of course, the second challenge is going to be to resist a potential interference of the Russian Federation that is going to continue. We are going to see a half a year long electoral campaign in which we are going to see massive Russian interference, massive attempts to undermine Moldovan electoral system.
Has there been a system that you think Moldova could set up in order to try and prevent these Russian meddling for future elections? What can you tell me on this?
It's a short time. Half a year is not long in terms of governing. That's not very long. I was a member of the National Security Commission of the Parliament. I know how long it takes to actually build a system like that. It's not a speedy work. It's difficult work, but it is possible with hopefully support from our partners from the European Union, from United States of America, who might be able to supplement the Moldovan police as well as security institutions. We have succeeded in the past in this type of cooperation to stop some of the attempts. When I say I associate myself with the country because I prefer to have free and fair elections rather than influenced elections. But I have seen, and all of us probably have seen and remember, that in 2023 there was another attempt by the Russian Federal Security Services, the successor of KGB, to coordinate an attempt to overthrow the Moldovan government, and that was stopped with the help of the Ukrainian security services. So this kind of cooperation and strengthening of Moldovan security institutions in order to ensure free and fair elections through also democratic oversight of these systems, of these security systems in which they can be controlled in their actions, these are the two elements that are necessary now to at least curb. They're not going to be able to stop, but at least curb the influence of the Russian Federation, the negative, malign influence of the Russian Federation.
Thank you so much, Sir Vlad Lupan, a former Moldovan ambassador to the United Nations, for your expertise and insight onto this topic. Thank you so much for being with us here. And that's all for this edition of World Talks here on TVP World. I'm Diana Skaya. Stay tuned as we cover the U.S. elections and more from the region in just a bit.